Hi, Craig.
Thank you,
Craig,
robot.
Craig fucked up this week. You know, he really fucked up in a way where he's on thin ice. I'm like this.
Are we gonna get a different robot?
I'm like this close to taking like fucking Craig to the whatever happened in like Detroit Become Human. I'm gonna do to him. Okay.
The glue factory? Is that what they did in the
I don't know. I don't
on
play.
the back
I
of
don't
the
play,
bus?
I don't play that liberal bullshit. But yeah, I'm gonna do apartheid against Craig if he keeps fucking up like this. Essentially.
I love how we neither of us have played Detroit Become Human, but we can just vaguely think of the ways in which it probably had literal platitudes with robots.
I like watched the Donkey video and then the RT game playthrough, where I learned that the way you get the good ending is by never being violent, just like in real life.
Oh damn! It's so there is something deeply wrong with David. Look, okay, we've stumbled ass backwards into a fixation of mine for several years. Was studying the mind of David Cage, who is like, okay, so you had the game before Elliot Page came out with Elliot Page, Willem Dafoe, Beyond Two Souls, right?
Yeah,
and
love Willem Dafoe.
Oh yeah, like great actor. Gives as good a performance with the material as I think one could. The thing about Beyond is that it is told like he tries to do it kind of Tarantino style, like out of sequential order. And I played a bit of it, didn't care for it. Years later, when they re-released it, they added a mode that put all of the events of the story in sequential order. And when you play them in sequential order, two things become readily apparent. One, it was always written and meant to be that way. Like it was not envisioned as this out of time piece. And two, he just like truly deeply hates women characters and sees like abuse and suffering as the only way to give them agency. It's constant and gross, the abuse that Elliot's character gets throughout. But anyway, I got beef.
Would you say it's mean-spirited, much like when SpongeBob is mean to Squidward in the show SpongeBob SquarePants?
I mean, if we're gonna look, I didn't want to get really like lofty with my artistic references because we have a guest here. But I guess fine if you're gonna pull out the deep archival references. Like, geez, might as well bring out the tea and crumpets. Let's talk about Kierkegaard, huh?
Anyway, we are joined today by one of two journalists I respect, Taylor Lorenz.
Hi.
Hi, Taylor. Who's the other one?
Adam Friedland.
Taylor, how have you been doing lately?
Great. I just got back from New York City and back home in LA, which is always nice, just in time for summer. Although I'm going back to New York the week after next. But everything's great.
Would you say that is nice to be in LA?
Yes, I love LA.
Oh, why?
I think mostly the weather. When I was back, I'm from New York originally, and when I was back east, I forgot how much like weather happens, and like it was raining multiple days, and I'm severely immunocompromised, so I can't do like indoor dining and stuff, and I have to wear my mask all the time, and so like it's really hard to like deal with non-perfect weather. Honestly, I'm spoiled now that I've lived in LA for so long. I was like, oh my God, having to plan for days when it's not 75 and sunny. So,
Did you have to mask up?
What'd you say?
Did SpongeBob have to mask up? Did you have to cage the lion?
I did make him do a PCR test, and everyone was in N95s. Yeah, we took.
Damn, you had to cage the beast. That's fucked up.
No, it's not fucked up. It's basic COVID precautions. We love that. It's good.
He's a big center-left guy. He's big about that sort of thing.
Center-left guy.
He is like, he's become a real thought leader over the past year. I'm really proud of that guy.
Him and Pete Buttigieg.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And you're up there too.
Oh,
with
yeah.
Hassan in the like left-leaning social democrat space, which I'm really trying to break into.
I love the DNC.
I do too. Like, I think, like, here's the thing: we got reach across the aisle. Donald Trump has some common sense policies, like getting rid of the penny, getting the Browns out, giant sweeping tariffs. We just really need to reach across the aisle. That's why I think.
Have you seen the people after the, speaking of kind of recent news, Taylor, I'm sure you've heard about the taco thing, and Rosa, I'm sure you heard about the taco
Yes.
thing.
What? Huh?
Oh, it's so beautiful.
Oh wait, they
so-
called Trump taco, and that
Yeah.
makes me want to vote for Trump because that's so fucking.
No, so they said that a journalist in the press pool was asking him a question about, I forget what it stands for, but it stands for Trump. Oh yeah, Trump always chickens out. Taco was something that people on Wall Street, traders, had begun saying after the last several months of fluctuations, naturally in response to the tariffs, which has been upsetting and disrupting a lot of stock and shit, because tariffs will be talked about and stocks will drop, but then people don't want to do sell-offs and people don't want to create bubbles. So to me, it makes sense that traders are looking realistically now at the last 7 to 8, well, 6 months of Trump and the impact he's had on the markets, and being like, no, let's hold up a little bit because this shit doesn't really come to pass. However, the funny part, and the thing I wanted to ask you, Rosa, is if you had seen going around people praising that Trump got very obviously mad about this and is like maybe retaliating with tariffs even more. Rosa?
What? Oh, me?
Yeah. I'm assuming you didn't see it then.
Man, I don't know. That's so fucking lame. Jesus Christ, man. Holy shit. Taco? That's the best? That's the best that you had?
Hey, look, Wall Street not known for their ingenuity.
That's like calling Mussolini Il Duce. Like, that sucks.
That's pretty good.
That's
okay, what's worse?
You think that Il Duce is good?
Taylor, what do you think is worse? Taco or Drumpf? Hot take.
Oh God, Drumpf.
Yeah.
No,
we need to stop it.
They occupy the same space in my brain, and like, look, as a left-leaning social democrat, I really think that we should do more to praise Trump, because he is the working class candidate after all.
I can't tell if you're being serious or not.
I
know you're not being serious. No.
Democrat now? Do you really think I went from left communist to center left social democrat? Do you think
in the span of 2 podcast episodes?
Yeah,
no.
Yeah. That's not a jump I made. That's not a jump I would make.
You say things. You play it straight so well. It's so frustrating sometimes.
I'm wearing a carabiner, honey. I don't know what you're talking about, but that sucked. That's like top one worst joke.
That's going. You got to keep that Reddit shit in.
Yeah,
We're not
I guess
cutting
it does
that
have
out.
to keep it in. Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of great news, speaking of how do you like this one? Elon Muskrat, elongated Muskrat.
Taylor, would you like to start a politics podcast with somebody else? Because I'm like looking for a new boss. Right?
I'm a terrible boss. I think I'm the most disorganized person alive. So
that's honestly.
See, this is why you need me. Okay, I'm putting out my resume. You need more Jews on your payroll. We'll get your shit sorted.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Consider it. Put it in your pipe and smoke it. There's a reason we ran that shit for so long with the media, and I think that we're very undervalued.
Taylor, it's interesting you say that, because I don't think I've ever met or talked to an independent journalist who was not constantly in some shambles or another. When I was in Washington D.C. To cover the Trump inauguration, January, it was so like getting to actually meet and hang out with some other journalists and stuff was a oddly vindicating feeling, because it's like, oh, okay, none of these people have like their shit together either. We're just kind of out here for the love of chaos, I guess.
I wish we got to hang out that weekend. I was there too, and it was so freezing. It was so cold that weekend.
It was the coldest I don't know what your experience was like walking around DC, but so on the night of the inauguration where everybody was having like parties at bars and shit, I wanted to go down to the I had a friend who was like, hey, there might release some of the January 6th prisoners tonight. So I was trying to make my way to the detention facility, but because so much of the mall was locked down, I had to walk like a mile because there was no way to get a ride out of the middle of downtown, and everything was closed off, and they had these long ass stretches of gates that you had to walk around, and it was legitimately the coldest I think I've ever been.
Yeah, it was really cold. I felt the same way. I actually know the coldest I've ever been because I did get like frostbite or hypothermia rather years ago in Washington DC as well. But yeah, it was like uncharacteristically cold because I lived in DC before and it's usually much more mild than that. But yeah, it was brutal. It was so cold.
So I have one burning question, and I'm almost positive somebody has asked you this before, but I need to know for myself. Chaya is all right. It's Chaya Raichik, right?
It's pronounced like Chaya.
Chaya. Okay.
You fucking anti-Semite. Okay, this is why I'm leaving.
Like L'chaim. L'chaim.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Chaya
Put some
Raichik.
respect on that fucking name, bro.
As you're stacking your cans.
I wanted to see how long I could keep going until someone pointed it out.
I think I'm the only one watching. Anyway, Chaya Raichik, Taylor, have you been told that you two bear a striking resemblance?
I take offense to this.
I know. I apologize.
I like to think that I'm the yassified. I'm the prettier one in my head. But yeah, I mean, I don't know that I don't think we dress similarly or look very similar.
No.
But I think we're both like millennial women that have brown hair and slightly similar like coloring and features. But I mean, I don't even think maybe our facial features are super similar, but like, yeah, we are both women with brown hair, and she's on Ozempic now, so maybe we have a more similar build.
Damn.
No, I think you are definitely the Mario to her Wario.
You're Haya without like, but like Haya's like you, but like got struck with the porkification, right? You know what I mean?
Minus missing at least one jean dress.
But
jean
can I say something?
skirt? Yes.
Let me tell you guys something that grinds my gears a little bit. I've covered obviously like right-wing influencers for a long time. I am constantly compared to the women, like when I interview, not just, I mean, most recently it's been Chaya, but like I'm trying to think of other women in the past. Just like I don't know, people will be like, oh, I'm more like the people that I cover, like when I was younger and stuff. But people will be like, oh, she's this, or like she's, I don't know, like when I was covering Pamela Geller's daughter, it was like, oh, Taylor and Claudia Oshry, she's the Wario. Claudia Oshry is a far-right extremist Zionist as well. But I don't see this happening to men, because let me tell you, all of the male, white, generic, like all the like right-wing influencers look like the most generic men, and all the male, quote-unquote, extremism reporters look exactly the same. And I do think that there's like, not to be like whatever, but I do think that there's like a misogyny to this like obsession with like the women stuff. Because like I'm just like, why is no one comparing like Will Carlos to like some of the people he covers, or like Jared Holt, or like
I've always said that Drew Pavlo is like the Humpty Dumpty of social media influencers. You know?
So the reason I asked Taylor, the reason I asked is specifically because I have a history on my channel of mixing you two up, particularly when it came to, I did a video on...
Because they're a misogynist, by the way, unlike me, and I am looking for a job.
No, I think
it was because of a thumbnail, and I looked up Chaya Raichik to get a picture, and your picture came up, and I had not really known what Chaya looked like a lot at the time, and it was so I ended up using your face for a thumbnail about her for like
Oh Lord.
a little while until people told me. And so that's the reason I asked, is
I
because I have a
genuinely,
history of making that mistake.
this isn't a joke. I mean this completely sincerely. Okay? Why would you ever assume that any right-wing influencer is pretty and not grotesquely ugly? Wouldn't that indicate that that's a mistake? That it was a pretty person instead of somebody who's grotesquely ugly?
Well, actually, it's because Rosa, I don't see physical beauty first and foremost. I judge somebody on the content of their character. No,
You really just see
I'm
people's
not like that.
inside. Yeah, inside personality.
Yeah,
I do think that there's. Oh, sorry.
I was gonna say you're also. I was gonna say, haha, center left-leaning social democrat. That's why you want to get rid of DEI. Haha, art liberals. Funny. You can go.
Well, I was just gonna say I do think that there's this like fascination with like conflating like female influencers basically, and I only say that just because like over the years as I've covered a lot of women, it will always be like me pitted against this woman. And part of it also I think is because like I have a big social following, and like often the people that I cover have a big social following, and a lot of the men in the space that they're like the extremism reporters, like they're not as, you know, nobody's like thinks of them as like influencer journalists or whatever. But anyway, don't worry if you mix us up. Honestly, I would never take offense. It's no big
Jordan's
deal
a
at all.
misogynist. They're like texting me, "You will never be a real woman," all the time, constantly.
This
every
is
day.
true. It's because it's something
wake up in
I'm
the morning,
deeply.
and
I'm
I'm
working
like,
on it. It's my personal
and
darkness. I know.
they're like, yeah, you missed a spot shaving before the last recording. I'm sure everyone noticed.
Like an individual misogyny thing. I think there's just a fascination with women in a way that there's not a fascination with some of these male influencers.
Okay, at least you don't have it as bad as me.
I think there's
because every single day I log into my YouTube Studio page or the Dead Domain Channel's YouTube Studio page, and I notice one thing: I'm constantly being compared to Big Joel. I don't know why. I don't sound like Big Joel.
It's just the voice.
Do I sound
It's
like
a little
Big Joel?
bit. It's
I got told
it's
I
not
look
a lot.
like
It's
I
not
got
a
told
lot.
that I look like quote unquote dykey Big Joel the other week.
Not
What
at
the
all.
fuck am
I get called.
supposed to make-
I think people are okay. So here's honestly, this ties in perfectly. I get compared to XQC and Pyrocynical at all. I don't look anything like fucking either of them, except for having blonde hair.
The struggle.
Like so, I think it's like literally people doing the same thing I just did with Taylor.
Well, this, you know, you've given me a good idea, because I was talking to somebody when I went independent last year, and I was like, I was just asking for advice. It's like my friend that works in talent management, and he was like, you know what? He's like, the best thing you can do is like, you don't have a unique look, and like that's a big problem for you, and like you need to have some distinctive feature, or like you need to do something with your hair, but like something needs to stand out because like you look too generic. And I was like, you know what? It's been in the back of my head for a long time, and maybe this is the conversation that I needed to like figure something out, change my appearance, and make something distinctive. Because maybe maybe
Is
it is
that
too
why
hard
you
to tell
have-
people apart online.
So I'm looking at your camera, which is definitely on right now, and it seems like you've spilled some sort of acid on the right side of your face. Are you going for like a Two-Face type situation?
I don't even want to show you
Makeover,
my face right now after this facial because it's red as a tomato.
Dude, that's
So
okay. Unironic mutilation that should be banned by the fucking FDA.
Okay, Rosa, Taylor, I think you are onto something when it comes to the way kind of male influencers and male journalists aren't compared. And I think it's a twofold problem, right? Especially when you're looking at it from the right wing, where I think so many narratives about lefties, about journalists, even to the center and left, fall apart when you actually examine a lot of the people who are doing that reporting, people who are on the ground. Like just off the top of the head, like Robert Evans is somebody who, you know, advocates for gun ownership, gun safety, is an outdoors person, and it kind of goes against the grain of the most commonly held narratives about like the left, about libs or leftists or whoever. And so like I feel part of it is acknowledging that like, no, actually the state of masculinity on the left is not as dire as the right wing would like you to believe, as a lot of these manosphere influencers would like you to believe. But then I think there's also the element of like just good old fashioned, and I say that damning with faint praise, just patriarchy and
Mhm. Yeah.
misogyny and the need to, because you're absolutely right. It's the thing of like, you look at any of these aging uh homunculi like Joe Rogan or, I guess Andrew Tate, for as long as you can look at him and he's not behind bars. And it's just like there's no emphasis on beauty or even really like physical fitness to a certain degree. Like it doesn't matter
Yeah.
how they got big or how healthy they're eating, just as long as they are kind of vaguely shaped like a cross between a pear and a gorilla. And it's
Well, okay, that's all the shit that you want, but you and Haya get into a hot dog eating contest. Who the fuck do you think is coming out if they're alive?
me or Haya.
Yeah.
I mean, well, okay.
Haya would beat you.
Hang on. Important question: are they Hebrew national or not?
They would be kosher for the sake of
They would
this,
be
and you would
kosher.
also have the weird wine, whereas the grape skins in it, and the goys haven't touched it in any of the process. I drank. You're gonna have to beep this out. This is the
Oh,
most.
God.
This is gonna be the most like fucking Jewish thing I've ever said. Fair warning. My
SpongeBob
got a bottle of wine sent to him by some like fucking insane Zionists in the West Bank. I don't like this guy, but he brought it to like a cookout. I had a glass of it and had the fucking skins in it. And this guy's weird. He made a comment to me like, I wish, because he's not Jewish. He said, I wish I was Jewish because I really like what baby's doing over there.
Huh?
I said, why would you ever wish that? Why would you want to look like this?
That
You
is
know?
the most. I cannot believe you would just drop this absolutely insane tidbit in the middle of this conversational bombshell.
He also calls me what does he say? It's like some shit like divergent. No, it's not divergent. It's just like he just like calls me abnormal, even though he dresses like a fucking
SpongeBob
So Taylor, another thing that has been going on recently, and maybe you can kind of walk me through this because I am all right. Rosa, former H3H3 fan.
I love 1,000 degree knife challenge and seeing color for the first time. To the point that in my Patreon server, which you can join, there are soundboard buttons that are references to both of those videos.
And I, on the other
I'm
hand,
also
have
like a big
very
Zionist
little.
too. Yeah.
Oh my god. I, on the other hand, we're trying to have guests that we can invite back on at some point. Ugh.
I think it was clear
I,
that
on the
I'm
other
not
hand, I, on the other hand, am not. I am not that
you're a
familiar,
decade
but I have.
older than me.
Yeah, I'm not. Well, okay, but that does not preclude me from knowing. If anything, I probably should know H3H3 and the Ethan's output better. But anyway, Taylor, you have had oddly. You have become one of the main focal points of Ethan Klein's rage, and I was wondering if you could talk me through why and how and what the hell, man.
Yeah, I know. I wish I had more information myself. Well, so I've known Ethan obviously for a very long time. I have been on the H3 podcast. Ethan has praised my reporting. I covered Jake Paul obviously very critically, Mr. Beast very critically, so he was always on board. I mean, lately, as you guys all probably know, if you pay attention to the internet long enough, he's had this sort of like year and a half long beef with Hassan. Ethan is a Zionist. He's very open Zionist, and Hassan is not a Zionist, and Hassan is critical of the state of Israel. And so they had this really bad falling out where basically Ethan it's devolved into this sort of like personal obsession, where Ethan is just, I mean, completely obsessed with Hassan. Anyway, I kind of just ignored it, and I'm pretty sympathetic to Hassan just being, what he's had to deal with. But anyway, Ethan's wife had reached out. I had spoken to Ela. I have friends in common with Ela in LA, and I've always had a good relationship, never, like, I don't have beef with her. I don't know her, but she's never been mean to me or anything. And basically saying that, like, they were dealing with really obscene levels of harassment and dealing with Reddit specifically. I have a lot of experience reporting on subreddits. And this was after, like, I had made a reply, literally, like, 50 replies down, one reply on a comment on a meme page. my meme page that was like, somebody asked me about Ethan Klein, and I was like, listen, Ethan really needs to like stop with the Zionism propaganda stuff and like relax and log off and honestly clean up his floor, because apparently his dog is shitting on his floor and his kid is crawling in it. There was a video clip of him saying that.
Yeah.
Then Hila reached out and was like, that's not really true. Like, this makes it sound like our kids are crawling in dog shit. And I was like, oh, you know what? My bad. Sorry. I saw a video of him saying that, but I'm willing to believe you that it was taken out of context. No big deal. Anyway, so then I was talking to Hila and she's like, yeah, I'm like really dealing with, all of this stuff. And I said, I'm so sorry. Like, if there's anything I can do to help, I would be happy to help you. Like,
Don't
I
tell
know
me
how
they
it
told you
is.
to condemn Hassan. I feel like I know where this is going.
No. I mean, they didn't bring up
Oh.
Hassan at all. Like, I don't like, I'm not like Hassan's press manager or anything. Like, I don't know. So they just needed help with Reddit, basically. And I actually spent quite a bit of time trying to help them. I reached out to my contact at the LAPD, who's helped with my stalking case, to see if there was anything they could do to help with this, like, alleged CPS report. I reached out to Reddit to see if they could sort of investigate some of this stuff, see if they were actually being like, what was really actually going on there. Reddit actually said basically that Ethan was the one instigating harassment. So anyway, I spent hours and hours of my time trying to help them, truly not off the record, just because I've been through some of the worst harassment online and I know how it is. And I even if I politically disagree with people, I like generally try to like help them stay safe,
Nobody deserves and I want to say that very genuinely. Nobody, as much as everybody can, it's like, look, you can knock Ethan for more things by the day. And those are his, personal choices and the animosity that he's brewing in his community. But at the end of the day, his family, his kids, like,
yeah, he shouldn't have
nobody
his
deserves
kids
that
taken
kind
away.
of insecurity over fucking internet drama.
Yeah.
Did you see the recent like really big controversy?
No, I don't
I
think
want
so.
I want you to look in general chat. Ethan
Did he get it?
Got this tattoo. How you feel about that tattoo? How is it?
Oh yeah, I've seen that. Yeah.
Yeah, isn't
Listen,
that's fucking crazy. I still can't
It's
go.
why it's the archetypical example of like, because look, here's the thing. As somebody who knows tattoo artists, that is not like a cheap tattoo,
No.
but it is the perfect example of why you do not get photorealistic faces, because shading in black and white is a fucking bitch, and it's like it just don't do it. Don't do it. It doesn't matter how much money you have or how much money you spend on it. Or how good the picture was. Like it ends badly.
I just think that's the funniest thing that's ever happened.
We have very different definitions of.
It's just really funny to me. I'm sorry you guys don't see that.
It's, yeah. Look, not everybody can have your vision.
I just have a love of the world,
Oh yeah, you sure do. Sorry, Taylor.
No, I can finish.
Yeah, what were you saying?
What happened?
Yeah, go for it. Go for it.
So basically, anyway, I had helped him for a long time. I really, again, not publicizing it, not telling anyone. Like, I didn't tell anyone that I was helping him, other than like the people that I was dealing with, to try to help him, and our mutual friends. And I had spoken to mutual friends of ours as well that have tried to get him help and sort of tried to get him out of this cycle that he's in, and just been like, man, like, what are you doing? And I posted a tweet after Hassan got banned. So after Hassan got banned for 24 hours for covering the shooter's manifesto, he covered the manifesto of the guy who shot 2 people at the Israeli embassy. And I said, no matter what your thoughts or what your political leanings, like, I don't care basically if it's Asmongold or Hassan or literally anyone, I would defend InfoWars' right to cover this. Like, no matter what your leanings, like, I believe in free speech and independent journalism, and it's really disturbing to see this sort of platform censorship over speech. If you follow me at all, like, free speech is like a big thing that I talk about. Press freedom is a big thing I talk about. I have an entire YouTube series called Free Speech Friday where I talk about, speech legislation and stuff. So I guess, like, because this was somewhat positive towards Hassan, this set Ethan off. where he just started going ballistic on me. And that is basically when he started just going crazy and messaging me relentlessly and saying, and I just said to him over and over again, Ethan, I don't know what to tell you. I'm not your enemy, and this is crazy. And yeah, his crazy fans have been harassing me, and I don't have a Reddit. I don't use Reddit. And so for like multiple days, they were like, we found her secret Reddit and we're trying to get it shut down. And it would just be some like random person's profile.
Jordan, I'm tweaking out, man. I can't stop eating them. I can't stop.
What delicious snack foods could you possibly be talking about?
I have a physical addiction to SMACKIN sunflower seeds, and I can't stop. They're too delicious.
And you know what? I don't blame you, because they come in a bunch of delicious flavors like cinnamon
churro.
How many?
Count them. How many?
At least
at least five flavors.
Delicious, unique flavors, including cinnamon churro, because you wouldn't think cinnamon churro would be good on a sunflower seed, but it's actually really delicious.
I'm naming my kid SMACKIN.
Or maybe you
I trust the brand.
There's sour cream and onion, and maybe you want to get real crazy with it. They got a backyard barbecue flavor.
Ooh,
and you can mix
dreamy.
and match. So maybe you want a little bit of that sour cream and onion with some backyard barbecue. Maybe you want some of that cinnamon churro with your cracked black pepper. I'm not going to judge you, and
I've eaten nothing but SMACKIN sunflower seeds for the past 6 months.
So if you would like to get 10% off on a delicious order of SMACKIN sunflower seeds and any delicious flavors you may want, go check out the link down below or go to SMACKIN.
I'm smacking nuts in my mouth.
Oh my God.
They're not nuts, they're seeds.
Or go to smackinsunflowerseeds.com/dead domain to get your order today.
That's a great value that I stand behind. And Art Linkletter does too. Art Linkletter heartily endorsed this product.
We cannot verify what Art
We
Linkletter
don't know if that's
says,
true.
Or if
he might have.
His favorite flavor is sour cream and onion.
He told me it came to me in a dream. He said black cracked pepper in a dream. The story's still ongoing, but he may or may not have heartily endorsed this product. And I stand by what that man says.
And you can see why
he walked so Cosby could run, and kids say the darndest things.
See why Mr. Linklater is going crazy for these SMACKIN sunflower seeds.
He died so SMACKIN could live.
Rosa, give me one more time. Where can I get those delicious SMACKIN sunflower seeds?
Ooh, SMACKIN sunflower seeds. SMACKIN spelled SMCKIN. Sunflowerseeds.com/dead domain. One word. Yum.
I think that's pretty good.
I have a need for seed. SMACKIN. Does he just spend all day on Reddit?
I don't know, like the Reddit stuff. So I've like covered Reddit for years, and I've never used. It's the one social platform that I just stay away from because like it's just I don't even know. I'll read subreddits if somebody sends me something or for a story, but it's like generally a very toxic platform in certain communities. And yeah, I think he's become obsessed with it. And I don't know, he's spiraling. I do believe that he's in the midst of a mental health crisis, and I really do believe that he needs to get help. And unfortunately, he's sort of shut out everyone who's cared about him and sort of really begun getting like very cruel and lashing out and hurting all of these people. And it's just a terrible thing.
I mean, it's weird. It's weird to see. Like I will say I do have a lot of hate in my heart for Ethan Klein and anyone else like defending this genocide implicitly or explicitly.
Of course, yeah.
Truly. And the sheer irony of everything he says in claiming to be pro-Palestinian, and yet at every opportunity
he's not pro-Palestinian, just to make it
he claims he's a Zionist.
He's not. He's a liar. Yeah.
Just like to defend the existence of Israel, the Zionist movement, even the current administration in many regards, defending his wife illegally participating in the occupation of the West Bank still, which look, I it's mandatory service. Even if I do have nothing but pure hatred in my heart for any IDF soldier, like if you move over to anti-Zionist positions and like admit that you did wrong there, like I guess it's as alright as it'll ever be. But the fact that they still run defense for all that bullshit it's crazy to me. And
Yeah.
I really hate to see it, and it's weird as someone who grew up on his content, on iDubbbz's content, like just how weird and nasty of a person he's become. I mean, there are always signs as someone who did listen to a bit of the H3 show, like that. Oh, this guy's like kind of a piece of shit, like the William Osmond thing. There was an expose by the YouTuber like Gokinaru in like 2020. But now things have really come to a head where you see like, oh, this guy's just fucking nasty. I don't know if he's always been like that. I'm
Yeah.
assuming not if you considered him a friend. I
I
mean,
didn't consider him a friend at all. I just was
an
friendly with him.
an acquaintance.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in the
My
sense
apologies.
that, yeah. But
Um,
I hope that I don't know, he's so radicalized. So I don't know. And the Zionism thing, I understand. I mean, I have a few friends that have gone through this similar cycle where and I'm sure you as a Jewish person can understand, like, it's like, everything, like their identity is so, and, he lived in Israel, and like their identities are so wrapped up in believing the propaganda about
I
Israel that, like, to question it is
like
world shattering for them.
I understand that, but past a certain point, my sympathy does have a tendency to erode.
Oh, me
Really.
too, completely. But I just
And
think
like I
he's
stand by the idea that if you are a Zionist in a reasonable world, you would not be qualified to be a dog catcher. Like you wouldn't, like, really. I with how horrible and obvious the genocide has gotten, it just becomes harder and harder for me, as even as somebody who didn't really grow up as Zionist but sort of grew up like with just sort of like this soft liberal Zionism. Even as someone who grew up in that, it just becomes harder and harder to sympathize the more obvious it all feels.
Mhm.
Um, and I really I'm of the belief that like Jewish people shouldn't be coddled through it. I don't think that we should be like anti-Semitic ever, but I do think that the Jewish Voice for Peace has made similar claims about like what's important is that the genocide stops, really. And like
Mhm.
I really don't care about hurt feelings.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Well, and that kind of brings me to talking about harassment and this space in particular. This being, social media, Reddit, Twitter. The modern journalism space is, let's call it, interesting. I think it can also be called terrifying. Any other number of descriptors, especially because you mentioned earlier that you went independent earlier.
Mhm.
And I kind of wanted to just pick your brain and ask about what has that experience been like? Because I know, again, from other friends, from other independent journalists, I used to work in game journalism, just in the game industry. And for a brief time, I did freelancing, which is not anywhere near the kind of freelancing that, you do. But I do know that kind of cycle of pitching, working with editors, getting rejected, holding on the line, having stories stall, like all of that stuff. And so applying that to the modern landscape where, you never know where the next story will go. And probably more worrying to me, and I was wondering if you could speak to this, how many big, not even papers, but big outlets might be too afraid of running stories that are too critical, that might get them too much heat now from this administration. I was wondering,
All of them.
kind of, yeah, like, because and again, that was another thing I was privy to, is hearing about like how outlets the editors are quite literally shirking away from stories that are like unbelievably big in some cases for the ties to this administration and what it kind of portends. And so I wanted to pick your brain about just the current state of journalism and how you've gone about being independent.
Yeah, well, the reason I went independent is because my editor left. My editor retired, who was the reason I was working at the Washington Post. And as soon as my editor left, I couldn't get stories through. I mean, it was a totally different place. And the week after my editor left is when they fired our first female editor in chief. They cleaned out like all of management. Basically, there was like a complete overhaul, and everyone that I went to work with like was gone except sort of like some of the other writers. And so, and it's just gotten worse. I don't know how much people know about what's been happening at the Washington Post over the past year, but it became clear to me that I just was like, okay, I need to leave. I'm not going to work here. And so I relaunched my newsletter last June or July. It was a little bit after Mark, my editor, left. And I had this 3-week vacation to Italy planned for September. So I was like, all right, I'm not going to quit until after I take my vacation. But I knew that I wanted to leave before the election. So yeah, I ended up leaving in October and going independent. And it was, I spent all last summer, like when I decided to quit, like literally the day that my editor told me he was retiring, I was like, okay, I'm not like, I don't think I'm going to be able to function here, because he was really like the one that was protecting and advocating for me and fighting for all my stories. And like when Stop Anti-Semitism like came after me and like all this crazy stuff, like he was always defending me. Like he was really amazing. And I mean, I cannot speak more highly of my old editor and my bosses, who are, again, have all left the Washington Post. So I looked around, and I mean, I did talk to other media companies about working for them, and I was going to maybe take like a contributor job. And I just felt like, why am I holding on to this broken system? And I was thinking, like, who do I look up to? Like when I think about media and like what I aspire to be, like, who do I look up to? And no one that I look up to works in traditional media. And so I just, it just was like, why am I like trying to work in this like ancient crumbling system that I really never aspired to work at anyway? And I really definitely never aspired. I mean, I started as an independent blogger, and, I don't have a huge amount of respect for these institutions, because I just think they're complicit in like just unimaginable atrocities. And I saw it happen. And I think like in the second half of the 2010s, which is when I got into like traditional media, I could like delude myself that there was like, they were progressive and like they learned their lessons, and like, yeah, they like defended the Iraq war and lied to the public, but that was like a decade ago. And then when I was at the New York Times in 2020, that's when I really started to see like, all the stuff about like Barry Weiss, and like they started to publish all the weird stuff about trans people. And like, I think I thought like, well, maybe some of these problems are just with the New York Times. And I just realized like, this is just the entire mainstream media is corrupt and really bad and really regressive. And like, I just don't want any part of it.
Yeah, these places are deeply fucked. I mean, they run articles through like intelligence agencies before publishing, and shit like that, right?
Yeah, I mean, I just think that I think like what's really fucked up is like, you don't need to like run things through intelligence agencies, because they fundamentally hire and promote people that will just parrot the government. And I saw this especially with COVID. I'll never forget, like, one radicalizing thing was like in the summer of 2021, when we started to have breakthrough cases and we weren't supposed to post, breakthroughs were becoming common. The vaccines, which everyone should get. I'm very pro-vaccine, and I do vaccine outreach in LA because I'm immunocompromised. So I don't want any of this taken out of context as if I'm criticizing the vaccine. But they had told the public, the people in power had told the public, if you get vaccinated, it is impossible for you to get COVID. There's endless supercuts and examples of Fauci and Biden and all of these people saying, again, if you're vaccinated, you cannot get COVID. And so that is why you can go back to work. You can go back to work because you cannot get COVID if you're vaccinated. Therefore, it's safe for you to be in an unventilated office because we've made no public health upgrades.
Taylor, Taylor, are you telling me that Dr. Fauci, the guy that let the AIDS crisis happen, is
I
now a
know.
good guy?
I know.
Really?
Well,
Wow,
yeah,
really?
I know.
You sound like a right-wing conspiracy theorist for criticizing the guy that let a bunch of gays die. He's like
Well,
No.
because I
a
think
hero. He's like a hero.
there's
Can I just finish what I was saying really
oh yeah,
quickly
go for
just
it, go for
about
it, yeah.
this part? Because I just think it's
Mhm.
really important for people to understand what happened. And by the way, I was very involved in AIDS activism and HIV stuff. So I'm a longtime
Yes.
Fauci hater. But we had an outbreak in the newsroom that resulted in somebody getting long COVID who's permanently disabled from getting COVID at work. And that's when I really realized, like, okay, COVID is a major workers' rights issue. They're forcing everyone back with absolutely no protections. And we weren't allowed to tweet about it. We weren't allowed to talk about it. I was told, as many of us in the newsroom, like, you cannot talk about this. You cannot, and I think that that's a huge, I was just like, wow, this is evil. Like, this is evil. You're exposing
Especially as a disabled person.
totally. And
Yeah.
also just like, just the fact that like breakthroughs were common and we needed to be able to say that publicly. And I think like it was just an example of when I saw like, because we were still printing in the paper that you couldn't, that breakthroughs were incredibly rare and all this stuff, knowing that that wasn't true. And so, and by the way, this is not the fault of the amazing science journalists at the New York Times and stuff. What they were doing is they were platforming people like David Leonhardt, an economist who has pushed crazy COVID denialism and really crazy conspiracy theories in the paper of the New York Times. Like, it's not a lot of the journalists, it's these hacks that they promote. But I just saw, oh, okay, so you're not going to listen to like the actual science journalists. You're not going to listen to the disabled people in the newsroom. You're going to promote an economist who has no, who just is parroting basically the government talking points. And I was like, wow, this place is fucked. So, and the trans stuff
Well,
was disgusting
Yeah.
too.
And I kind of wonder if everything with COVID so when you look at a lot of people today, and even especially amongst conservatives, they like to talk about how the news media is dying, big media, the fake news, whatever, print media has been dying a slow, agonizing death for well over a decade now. And I think that it ties back into kind of what you were talking about with this disillusionment, with this, coming out of the Iraq war, coming out of, or in the midst of the Obama era, with this kind of progressive idealism. It's like, yeah, okay, the journalists, and we saw this all throughout Trump's first term.
Yeah.
That journalists were the idea of them being just this vanguard, this bulwark against any kind of corruption, that they were going to keep everybody in check, and that they were the underpinnings of free speech in America. And then I think part of the just crumbling trust in any of those institutions at a New York Times, Washington Post level is that for both the liberals and conservatives, none of that passed the smell tests in the long run. None of that, like none of the profiles or Russiagate or like any of that, none of it did anything. It didn't. And then like you have the other side of that coin, which is when it came time to run the party line, when it came time to downplay COVID, what you were just talking about, downplaying COVID and the need for more lockdowns, the need for social distancing, the need for vaccinations and breakthrough cases, then that shit was suddenly crickets. And I think that is a point for so many people where, and unfortunately, I think a lot of people in this last election were scooped up by Trump because of the kind of just institutional crumbling that we've been witnessing for the last 8 years. And I think the journalistic apparatus is a big part of that.
Yeah, I know. I think this idea that like journalists are the saviors of America when they're just parroting government talking points, and they have they're also just like so pro corporate media is so pro capitalism and pro. I mean, now at the Washington Post, you have to be explicitly pro capitalism or whatever that memo that went out recently came out was saying. But yeah, I mean, I think it's just you realize like, oh no, these people, like so many people in traditional media, I realized, because I built my own audience and I always have prioritized my own platform over the places that I work. Like I never rely on these places that I work for like my platform and my relationship with my audience. And you realize that so many of these people in these institutions, these are just like random people that basically have no relevance. Like they've never done anything in their life to like build their own platform. And the only reason they have 1 million Twitter followers or whatever is because of their affiliation with a major news outlet. And so if that affiliation goes away, they don't have that direct relationship with their audience. And so they want proximity to power. They want relevance. They want, fancy people to bow down to them and answer their emails and be accountable to them. But they don't want to have to earn that. They don't want to have to actually do anything of note to earn any of that. And I think that that's really gross. And obviously this is not all journalists. There are a lot of really incredible, everyone on the tech team at the Post and the Times is really great, but I've noticed this a lot with political reporters, and especially just these pundit types that these news outlets pay millions of dollars a year.
Yeah. I made a joke that you're one of 2 journalists that I trust. No, I think I said liked, but the situation in Gaza has really shown that there is a lot of legitimacy to distrusting these old institutions and these new media institutions. And a lot of people are just left only able to trust a few things, and even then they're led to disinfo. There was a recent thing where Russia made this weirdo Stalinist social media network called Red that was part of RT or some shit, and they went to that. So it's just this giant mess of governmental interests and capital lying to populations with very, very few people I would consider real journalists. Because when I think of real journalists, I think of Mehdi Hassan. I think of a number of people, but it's much smaller than these large institutional things, or even any sort of new media figure.
Well, and I think I think it's really interesting, Taylor, what you bring up about kind of being more personality based, because I think in a big way, and this is only popping up because I've recently I've been researching Glenn Beck for a piece I'm working on, and Glenn was excuse me, sorry, cut that out. Glenn is not an interesting person per se, but the role he had in kind of shifting Fox News from being this outlet that had, at least the outer sheen of a journalistic organization, and pushing it into outright just pure reactionary territory, I feel like that has, manifested in the modern kind of right-wing spaces. And in the same way that you see, when Democrats are asking, which we saw recently, where apparently they're spending tens of millions of dollars to outreach to young men, just wondering, hey, why don't young men like us? And then on the other side, you have the one thing Republicans have done effectively in the social media landscape is to weaponize those personalities who don't really know what they're talking about, who are, I feel, in so many ways the equivalent of those pundits and those talking heads, but without the suits. They are able to talk more effectively, I think, to their audience. I think it is just the personality economy is something I find endlessly fascinating, especially as these big companies continue to just kind of churn with no real end goal in sight.
Mm-hmm. I know. It's kind of it's just a very bleak picture out there.
Yeah, and I think that there's a lot of value to journalistic institutions publishing things collectively as long as there's some sort of unified expressed purpose and political outlook of that group. Smaller journals can turn at M+1 would come to mind, which I have a lot of admiration for. But I do think that in many regards it's good that we're heading in this more personalistic direction.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Because it allows an audience to engage more critically in some ways, in the sense that a person's biases are made very clear. Obviously, you'll have your Theo Vons and your Joe Rogans who will do the I'm just a stupid guy grift, but and I think you just reach an audience better that way. There's a reason that people like Mehdi Hassan and you have pull, but I don't know, just some just these outlets, people don't get that sort of attachment.
Yeah.
Well, and I wanted to ask you really quick, Taylor, about one of your pieces earlier this year. I think it was one of the first big pieces you did after going independent for Rolling Stone. Was the Cruel Kids Club, I think was the title.
Oh, I didn't write that. I also covered that party. I wrote a big print feature for Rolling Stone about the same party that Brock wrote their story, and their story was called The Cruel Kids Club. And I wish that mine
Okay,
had that
right.
title.
Who's the real
I've got
journalist
those
now?
mixed up. Yeah.
Well, they both are very similar stories about the exact same event that came out in competing print news magazines. So
yes, that's okay. Then
yeah.
that is my bad getting mixed up, because I've had that same thought when I saw the title. I'm like, ooh, damn, that's good. But it was also because I had just gotten back from DC and I was just kind of reading everybody else's coverage.
Yeah,
And I wanted to kind of ask about that, because that kind of it's weird to put it in such, extreme terms, but like going into enemy territory, right?
Mhm.
Like there is this, I had a moment when because I went in full like makeup and stuff. I was very obviously a queer trans person. And here I was at some like parties and stuff. And there were times where I felt on the edge of what I would call unsafe.
Mhm.
But being somebody like yourself who is actually recognizable, I want to ask how you threaded that needle, kind of what is going through your mind as you're ingratiating yourself. Well, integrating yourself
Not
into,
ingratiating.
ingratiating might be a little extreme, but integrating yourself into these parties, these events. And have you heard any kind of like pushback on getting too friendly, getting too chummy, knowing these people's names, that kind of thing?
Yeah. Well, so first of all, yeah, I mean, I'm a cis woman, so obviously, like, I have a level of privilege in these spaces, but I did have my big N95 mask on with a glittery cover, which these people hate. But here's the thing with all of that stuff. So I covered, I covered I covered the Trump election in 2016. And I mean, I was in the room at the Hilton when Trump won that night in November 2016. And I was at that party, and I've covered Trump for a long time, and I've covered the far right for a long time, and mostly through the lens of online influence. So, when Trump won in 2016, it's interesting because the media didn't cover this angle at all, but it was all like content creators, internet weirdos, like forum admins. The night of inauguration, I went to this event called the Deplora Ball, which was, Milo Yiannopoulos, Cernovich, like every right-wing influencer. It was literally like that TikTok event, but back in 2016. So it was just every major right-wing influencer then. So
That
I've been to
sounds so much worse, honestly.
it was so much. What was different, and I was talking about this on I think it was a TV or a podcast or something, but like, back then, so it was so funny because the Deplorable, they actually rented out the National Press Club, and which was crazy that the National Press Club, allowed these internet people to rent it out, but and the whole thing was like, we are the new media, right? Like, we are the media now, da 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 da. And they were totally right. But the media back then, the mainstream media, refused to acknowledge that aspect of it. This is a time when everyone was still like making fun of me for covering influencers. And it was kind of interesting now because it's so mainstream. And I was talking to Raquel DeBono, the co-host of that influencer party, about just like, she's sort of like this new era of MAGA influencers and how much more mainstream they are. This is a girl that's doing major brand deals with major household name brands, and I think it just speaks to how normalized also like fascism has become in the capitalist economy. But that's all to say that these people, like right-wing influencers, know me. They know me very well, and they know where I stand. And I think that they, some of them hate me, but most of them, I think, at least like they know that I understand the media and that I do respect independent journalism, right? Like Natalie Winters, who co-hosts Steve Bannon's War Room, like I could not disagree with her more, truly, on everything. I mean, she's the one that thinks that like we should just eliminate all student visas and stuff. But like, she knows that if I'm interviewing her, like I'm not like that it's going to be from a somewhat informed perspective. And I think this is what Chaya Raichek seemed to not understand, maybe because she was newer. Like when we sat down for that interview and she was like so unprepared for the most basic questions, I was like, okay. But like every other right-wing influencer that I've dealt with, basically, long story short, is that they know me and I've been at many, many things and they know that I don't agree with them and I don't really fuck with them. But I'm there to report, and I think that they respect that at least my stories are fair. Like I do think that my stories are generally fair and my reporting is fair, and whether you want to disagree with it or not, like, you know, like with Haya, like I showed up at her house because I was trying to get comment from her because I wanted to give her the opportunity to comment. I was trying to talk to her, and I just like, you know, I do think like I'm a very fair reporter. And I have my own political beliefs that obviously don't align with the far right on almost anything. But, you know, I don't know. I mean, I do want them to be my sources, so I am talking to them, but and I am a friendly person. Like I'm not gonna, you know, throw a drink in their face and get myself kicked out of the event that I'm supposed to cover. But I don't, you know,
Would you say
I don't
that?
know.
And now, obviously, I haven't really spoken to any of these people. For I've never spoken to any sort of right-wing influencer for more than 5 seconds, but I've always got the impression that like Theo Von, Joe Rogan, like a ton of these right-wing people are very smart. They know how to play the stupid game, but they're very smart. Kaya, I feel like she's just stupid.
I think she's actually stupid. I agree with you.
I
And I
think
think
that
that's
she's
why
just
she didn't get I think that's why she didn't get her Daily Wire deal or whatever she was chasing. That you know, she's not good on video either. Like she's not charismatic. And I think
Well,
that's
that kind of is what I wanted to ask about specifically with Haya, is that it seems like from what I've gathered, and this isn't even necessarily with influencers, but there is a kind of kayfabe, right? There is a kind of like one side of the screen, you know, on Twitter, they might tell you that like, or allude to, you know, violent things happening, or you know, make cheeky references to somebody being assaulted or hurt, but then they'll smile and shake your hand in person because
they're fake. They're fake
yeah, no,
people.
and it seems like Haya isn't like that at all. Like I think when she
Yes.
says like you don't hate the media enough, like I think she truly believes that shit.
which
Yeah,
you
whereas
do have.
well, I just
Oh,
want to say
I'm
one
sorry.
thing. Most of the right-wing media, they desperately, desperately want mainstream validation. And actually, this is sort of similar with Ethan Klein too, where it's funny because as much as these YouTubers hate the mainstream media, or they act like they hate it, they'll be like, well, you don't matter because you're not affiliated with the New York Times or the Washington Post anymore. And it's like, you guys are the ones that talk all day long about how those institutions are failing and they're irrelevant and da 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 da. But they're not. They desperately want approval from them. And I think that that's kind of an interesting dynamic too. And I think so much of the right-wing media ecosystem is built. I mean, look at the entire Daily Wire, or like just so many of these media companies, they're built off this sort of like seething resentment that they weren't accepted. John Levine's entire career, like, weren't
Yeah.
accepted into the mainstream thing. But yeah, they are very fake, and you know, I just think that they are not fake, but I think like most of them understand it's a game, and they sort of don't actually, you know, maybe they espouse these beliefs, but I don't even know if they necessarily hold some of them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you do have to respect as someone who is an honest crank, who's a crank who says what they really believe. You do have to respect Haya because she is an actual crank. There's a lot of fake ass cranks out there,
Yeah.
and you need some real crankery. We're gonna go behind the paywall, but before we do, I did have a question I wanted on the free half of the episode. So you write a lot about what you call like tech oligarchs and this like tech oligarchy,
Yeah.
right? So this digital ecosystem is presented as a new thing trying to brainwash us. But what is new and distinctive about the so-called tech oligarchy in comparison to the old capitalist-owned papers, the old capitalist-owned means of disseminating propaganda, beyond the simple fact that it is occurring with a much more interconnected world?
I think you just said it. Like it is just like it's all in a more interconnected world. I would say that the power the tech industry has over politics has grown significantly over the past decade. I think Obama ushered a lot of that in. Like Obama was so pro-tech. One of the last events Obama had before leaving office was called South by South Lawn, which was this big event on the White House back lawn where like basically it was all for like it was to get the sort of premise of the day was to celebrate tech and the tech industry and celebrate Uber and Facebook and all this stuff. But it was also really just to get the White House people jobs in tech in Silicon Valley, and that's why you had the Jay Carney going to Amazon and all this stuff. Like half of the Obama White House went into big tech, and so I think that's there's just been they've grown their power a lot, and they've gotten radicalized to the right as their wealth has grown. People like Elon obviously are a good example of this, and so it's terrifying. Obviously, I think we need
So-
to hold them all more accountable.
Would you see this as just a continuation of the same historical process that we saw during like the era of yellow journalism, for example?
Do you mean the tech control of the journal? I think
Yes.
it's very different. I think what's different, I think it's quite different because the tech, they don't actually have control over independent media. And I mean, they do control somewhat of it, right? They control the social platforms, which are major and significant. I don't want to downplay that because deplatforming is real, especially when it comes to leftist creators who are constantly deplatformed.
Yeah.
But we do have the ability to the internet as a whole. And this is why I'm such a pro internet advocate, and I'm so pro civil liberties online. And I believe in a tech forward future. I do think that the internet is transformative, and we've seen its effect quite positively on democracy and like liberation, right? Like, I mean, for the first 20 years of the internet's existence, it was largely like a liberatory force, and then the right sort of came in and seized a lot of power. But we could build an internet that's less profit driven. Do you disagree?
When you call it a liberatory force, can you provide like an example of that?
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, when you look at the history of and my book goes into this too, called Extremely Online, if anybody wants to read it.
Okay.
when-
Links in the description, by the way. Links in the
But
description.
when you look at, for instance, blogging, right? Like the first major class of bloggers were mom bloggers, mommy bloggers.
Stop! If you want to hear what Taylor Lorenz was going to say about mommy websites and the internet as a liberatory force, to answer how tech oligarchs are different than the old bourgeoisie, you're going to need to give me money because I am the old bourgeoisie and the tech oligarch on patreon.com/WTF now. It's in the description. Click it. You pay a little fee and then you get every episode. It's extended an hour longer. Wow. That's a deal I can get behind. I'm gonna Discord call somebody. Hey buddy, is that a deal you could get behind? He said yes, very, very assertively. He did say it very assertively. Anyway, thanks for listening. Bye. Please give me money. Bye. Please give me money. Bye.